everyone, welcome to Studio Classroom on the Air. This is the place to come when you want to have some fun. My name is Rebecca. Now, we all know that food is one of the most important parts of life. Everyone loves to eat. Therefore, since so much time is spent eating, I think it's important that we enjoy every meal, and every meal must be prepared well, so we can savor every bite. Food is also a great reflection of a culture. Part of getting to know a culture involves indulging, that is, eating different varieties of food. Well, today's lesson is called Chef's Table. It's exactly what we're talking about, food. And here are some fun phrases that you are going to learn about today. First, true to. Yes, that's right. You keep those two words together, true to something. And the next is experiment with. Okay, friends, open up your magazines and let's begin talking about food, or at least Chef's Table. Come on.
Chef's Table. Each chef has his or her own fascinating story, and the series does a great job highlighting an important common thread among them: culture. Because food is so intertwined with the culture it comes from, each chef represents whatever traditions and cooking techniques they've come out of. As ambassadors for their own culture's cuisine, the chefs straddle a line between being true to their culture's traditional cooking and integrating new tastes. In fact, several of the chefs work tirelessly at redefining an entire culture's expectations for eating.
Well, we're going to get right back into this lesson about Chef's Table because, as you know, we like to talk about food and we like to talk about experimenting with different types of ingredients.
Well, yes, and of course, Chef's Table is not just an entertaining show about cooking. There are plenty of those, but it's got a personal twist, right? You're learning about the personal lives and backgrounds and stories and experiences of all the chefs that are involved or featured in each episode.
We read, each chef has his or her own fascinating story, and the series does a great job highlighting an important common thread among them: culture. So in other words, each of the episodes actually involves culture of some sort.
That's right, in some way. That's the common thread. And if you want to know more about that phrase, common thread, it is this lesson's usage tip, so you can find that in your magazine and see how else you could use that phrase. Because food is so intertwined with the culture it comes from, each chef represents whatever traditions and cooking techniques they've come out of. So, for example, yesterday we learned about Virgilio Martinez and how he used a lot of different spices from the Peruvian ecosystems. Those are things that are very special or unique to Peru.
That's right. As ambassadors for their own culture's cuisine, the chefs straddle a line between being true to their culture's traditional cooking and integrating new tastes. Now we want to take a look at a few things in this sentence, starting with the phrase true to. If you're true to something, that means that you're very faithful to it. You're loyal, or you accurately portray something.
And it makes me think of being true to your beliefs or true to your convictions. So if you have beliefs, if you really believe them, then your actions will show it, right? You're not going to do something that goes against your conscience because you are true to your beliefs or convictions. Some people say you want to be true to yourself, true to who you are. And there, of course, is the discussion about whether it's more important to be true to who you are or true to your community, or true to your country, or the ideals of your country. A lot of wars have been fought in the past over this. People are true to themselves instead of their country or what their country believes because it goes against their personal consciences, and so bad things happen, right? But all this to say, there are many ways to talk about being true to something.
Definitely, but right now we are talking about these chefs and how they straddle a line between being true to their culture's traditional cooking and integrating new tastes. So they're kind of going back and forth. Is it more important to stay true to some of their, traditional cooking, or is it more important to integrate new tastes, or should they do both?
And I think this is a great thing for us to think about. There's a lot of fusion in almost every area of life these days. No one kind of music is purely that kind of music. It's kind of a mix with other kinds of music too. There's a lot of other things integrated. Rebecca, can you tell us more about that word integrated?
Yes, this is a very important word that appears in our lesson. And when you integrate something, or if things are integrated, it means that you combine those things together in order to make it more effective.
So, for example, of course, we have Rebecca and we have this teaching segment here at Studio Classroom, but there are other things integrated into our show as well, like the info cloud and the review skits and word skits. And Michelle, with the language lab, these are some other features that are integrated into our show.
And of course, you just saw a picture of something that looked rather interesting. Well, that's just an example of a new taste of some sort that perhaps someone hasn't tried before.
That's right. They're experimenting with something, just like the chefs in our lesson.
Well, we continue. In fact, several of the chefs work tirelessly at redefining an entire culture's expectations for eating. Now, speaking of chefs, I think it's important that we don't have too many chefs or too many cooks in the kitchen.
That is such a great phrase for you to know, friends. Let's learn more about it in
the Info Cloud.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Info Cloud. We all enjoy food, and I think it is about time that we share some idioms related to cooking. Joe?
Totally agree, Rex. Here's one of my favorites. There are too many cooks in the kitchen.
Now, that can be bad. If there are too many cooks, that means there are too many people involved, and it could hurt the results of a project.
We also say too many cooks spoil the broth. I added more people to my team, but too many cooks spoiled the broth.
I have another idiom that goes with our cooking theme. If you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen.
Kitchens can get really hot when you're cooking, but this phrase actually has little to do with cooking itself.
That's right. It means if you can't handle the pressure, you shouldn't be doing that particular job or task.
By saying this, you're implying that another person who can deal with the stress should be doing that job.
Keep in mind, you can also use this phrase in a humorous way to tease a friend.
For example, while playing a board game that's getting intense, a player might say, "If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen."
Hey everyone, welcome back to Studio Classroom. Now here's a question. Who doesn't like to eat? Who doesn't like really good food? Well, I would say that most people love eating, right? Well, we are in the middle of a lesson about Chef's Table. This is a Netflix series that we are talking about, and we have more to learn about this Netflix series, so let's get back to our lesson.
Chef's Table. A few chefs find success through experimenting with using unconventional ingredients in their dishes. Others focus on their guests' dining experience, relying on the element of surprise. Whichever route each chef chooses to take, this mixing of traditional techniques with new elements gives a very strong personal message to each bite. Despite having a number of unconventional elements associated with their cooking, one thing is clear. Cooking is an incredibly meaningful experience for each chef. For some, this pursuit of avant-garde cooking incorporates the very meaning of life. One guest described his time at one chef's restaurant by saying, "Eating there is like looking at someone who's put their soul into the food."
Okay, let's talk about a few of these chefs. A few chefs find success through experimenting with using unconventional ingredients in their dishes. And when you experiment with something, well, what does that mean?
Well, I'm very glad you asked, because I was hoping to talk about those words. If you experiment with something, it means that you try something in order to discover what it's like, or you want to find out more about it.
So, inventors, well, they have to experiment with many different things before they can make a good, successful product. Like Thomas Edison, he experimented with a lot of different materials, right? That's a positive sense. In a negative sense, we also use this phrase when talking about maybe someone going through a phase of life where they're experimenting with things that they shouldn't. He experimented with drugs when he was 15. She experimented with smoking and then got addicted, right? Now, when I was younger, I thought cooking was kind of fun too. I wanted to try it out for myself. I experimented with Skittles, those candies that taste like a lot of different fruit.
Yes, those
I experimented with those while making cookies. I put them inside the cookie batter and then put it in the oven.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Usually we use M&Ms for that.
I know, but I wanted to experiment with something unconventional.
Oh, very nice. Great example. Examples, more like it. Well, we got to get going here. We read, others focus on their guests' dining experience, relying on the element of surprise. Whichever route or route each chef chooses to take, this mixing of traditional techniques with new elements gives a very strong personal message to each bite. And as a chef myself, I don't really consider myself a chef, really, more like a cook. As a cook myself, I understand the fun of experimenting with unconventional ingredients.
Yeah, and the food that you make, you love it when you love watching people enjoy your food, right? I think that's like these chefs in our lesson or at Chef's Table, because this food is made with love, and so it sends a personal message to whoever's eating it. Despite having a number of unconventional elements associated with their cooking, one thing is clear: cooking is an incredible, meaningful experience for each chef.
That's right. It's an incredibly meaningful experience. And we continue, for some, this pursuit of avant-garde cooking incorporates the very meaning of life. Now we want to take a look at this word pursuit. Now this is the noun form of the word to pursue, and this is just the act of trying to achieve a plan, activity, or situation, usually over a long period of time.
Now that word pursue, if you're pursuing something or somebody, you're following after it, you're chasing it, or the person, right? So the cops might pursue the thief or the robber. That means they're chasing the robber, trying to catch him. Of course, you could be in pursuit of somebody. Perhaps if you want to date a girl, you're in pursuit of that girl. You're chasing that girl. Hopefully she'll be your girlfriend in the future. And these chefs are in pursuit of something good that they can do to help to improve their culture and the culinary experiences of people. One guest described his time at one chef's restaurant by saying, "Eating there is like looking at someone who's put their soul into the food." So it's very meaningful indeed.
And right now it's time for a review skit.
Wow, a TV show featuring food. What a great idea.
Television networks have produced shows featuring food for decades.
Right. Food shows are very entertaining.
Yes, people have a strong appeal of the culinary experience. recipes and restaurant reviews and many other things.
Yes, people are hungry to find out more about food.
And Chef's Table is one of the latest entries among food programs. It's an Emmy-nominated Netflix series.
Wow, and it features ways to prepare fine food, right?
Oh, it's much more than that. Each episode shares a personal story from a distinguished chef.
Yes, compelling stories, seasoned with the chef's unique life experience, right?
Right. Chefs that have gone to great lengths to put incredible food on their tables.
So, what about the chef who handpicks his ingredients for all his dishes?
Oh, that's Virgilio Martinez. His ingredients are from 7 Peruvian ecosystems.
Wow. What about the American chef that was diagnosed with mouth cancer?
That was Grant Achatz. He lost his sense of taste.
Oh.
But miraculously, he regained it.
Oh.
Now he pioneers a progressive American style of cooking.
Chef's Table highlights a common thread among chefs: culture.
Oh, food is intertwined with culture, and each chef represents their traditions and cooking techniques.
They are ambassadors for their culture's cuisine.
Exactly. They straddle a line between being true to their culture's cooking and integrating new tastes.
Yes, some experiment with unconventional ingredients.
Yes, and others focus on the dining experience, relying on the element of surprise.
Oh, mixing of traditional techniques with new elements gives a strong message to each bite.
The pursuit of avant-garde cooking incorporates the very meaning of life.
The meaning of life?
Well, yes, they put their soul into their food.
Their soul. That's a strange ingredient.
So what are some things that you enjoy experimenting with? Now, one thing we know for sure is that the chefs on Chef's Table enjoy experimenting with unconventional ingredients. That is, they enjoy using unconventional ingredients in their cooking. Perhaps you're a chef and you also enjoy experimenting with unconventional ingredients. Well, friends, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time right here on Studio Classroom.